Well, good afternoon, folks. It's the 25th of October. And I think that the number one item on our hit parade is to get finalized on the council RFP. There were some exchanges going back and forth with regard to use of the word municipal, and I think the last suggestion that I had put out there was local governmental instead of municipal. I don't know if anybody had any objections to that. And the one other suggestion that I had made was with regard to the due date for responses. The 20 days took us out to the day before Thanksgiving. And I don't know that any of us are going to be looking at it over Thanksgiving weekend, or anyone else will be. So I thought it might as well make sense to have the due date be the Monday after Thanksgiving and give proposers an extra few days if they need it. Okay. Since we're not going to be engaging on it anyways, I don't think. Beyond that, I don't know if there are any other thoughts, comments, objections. Sure, Tom.
I just wondered if Pat Collins had any comment, because of purchasing would actually have to open those RFPs. And I wondered if there was some reason why they do that, maybe only on Wednesdays.
On Wednesdays, is that, let me just think. That's probably based on the number of days from the letting of it on. It's probably the newspaper cycle. They open them whenever the 20th day is.
But there's no problem with waiting to the following Monday and doing it then?
Oh, I don't, I mean, normally our purchasing department works with our departments. In this instance, you're the department. It only would hurt the department. So they wouldn't mind not working diligently on the eve of Thanksgiving.
Okay.
They're hard workers. I don't want to.
My hope would be that those responses could be shared fairly quickly with the group, because we really need to move ahead quickly at that point.
Yeah, they make sure that all the necessary information is there, and law will make sure it's all there too, and then it immediately comes to you.
Good.
On the RFP, there's one thing I would, and I'll happily do this once pencils are down. The County of Albany there's a lack of consistency, and it's no one here did it. It's the draft we gave you. Sometimes it's the County of Albany, sometimes it's the county, sometimes it's Albany County. I'll just make it consistent.
Appreciate it. And if you could, Pat, one other thing is, I think that there's probably some formatting that it could be used to just have it be consistent throughout.
Sure.
Is there anything else that we need to do, though, in order to get this out? Because really, this has got to be our first priority.
I will call it. I have phone calls out to purchasing. I've talked to them a couple times previously. I will email everyone the moment I hear from them, but I don't really expect much else. You'll just have to internally decide who's going to evaluate them.
We need to work on
notes on the rules there. There's no talking amongst yourselves. You each graded independent of each other, and then it goes. It ultimately becomes a memo to purchasing is how we do it, saying this is who we recommend based on the criteria that we use to evaluate them. And then purchasing will give a concurrence letter. If you pick it, that would normally be an issue on like a service contract where there's a variety of bidders that all seem equal. And then it kind of goes to the lowest bidder. And purchasing would just say, well, wait a minute, you pick the highest possible bidder, explain your reasoning. In the instance where you're satisfied with the candidate you chose, if they're the most reasonable and responsible bidder, that lowest bidder, that'll become, the lowest bidder is not the sole qualification anymore. You just, it's a very quick, we just did one for newspaper, and you just explained how you came to that. It's a newspaper, so distribution throughout the county is kind of the logical reason. So you just put the reasons in, and I can help you. I can get examples of memos to purchasing that result in a concurrence letter.
So just to make sure that, because I'm trying to record the things that we need to do. So as far as sending out the RFP to purchasing to put out, you're gonna, I think we're saying we're all in agreement that the decision has been made to basically change the due date till after Thanksgiving, that we're going to use the local governmental language. Pat's going to update and have consistent how we refer to Albany County, but who's going to then send it off to purchasing?
I will.
Okay. And then the second thing you're saying, Pat, is that the evaluation criteria has to go to purchasing, and they have to have a concurrence letter.
The evaluation criteria is in the RFP.
That high level one. Okay.
Well, ultimately, there's a spreadsheet that'll come out that we can create. It's based on those number or those criteria that are in the RFP. And it just has tied to it. It's an Excel sheet, so it literally will weight the criteria. You range them 1 out of 5 internally.
Right.
And then the spreadsheet weighs them appropriately, and then each individual grader will have their output.
But we're developing, I think Warren's been saying he'd take the lead on this, that we're going to have a much more in-depth evaluation matrix. Is that correct, Warren? Did I get that?
I think we're talking the same thing. Yeah, the general criteria in the RFP, Pat has said that, they have a spreadsheet where they could aggregate the number. So I think we still would maybe break those major components out a little bit in some kind of tool that we'll then use to get a final score. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I have questions later on about the cost review versus the other review, but that's down the road. So I'll let you continue. Sorry.
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks.
And in the last version, I had made some changes to the evaluation criteria. And I just wanted to assure ourselves collectively that everyone was okay with that. I modified the parts about what people are reviewing, what people are being evaluated against with regard to let's see, it's experience. It proposes experience in representing and advising, it now says municipal bodies. And then it proposes experience in providing redistricting services, and proposes experience in providing election and voting law compliance services. And I weighted those at 10% each for a total of 30% on experience. And I don't know if anyone had comments on that.
No, I did like that. But as a group, how far do we plan to break those major summary components down? I mean, is this something we want to do, have to do, or?
I don't know that my perspective, and certainly it's not intended to be the final answer. I don't know that it's necessary to break those down and have sub weights, but I think that the evaluation tool can be very helpful if it identifies sub pieces of that. Now, what do we mean by experience in representing? How many years? How many different types of local governmental bodies have they represented? So I think just identifying the various components that might go into that and be reviewed against that to come up with the score would be my understanding of what I think would be helpful on evaluating.
So yeah, I can agree with that. So generally also people have to explain their sort of their score. Sometimes you could assume perfect and you sort of explain the negatives. So if we go with a tool that's not very specific, I think we have to add something where people have to sort of back up why you said what you said. So I don't know how we want to do that.
I think just a narrative would be my inclination, that the individual evaluators provide a narrative as to how they got to the conclusion they got to. The things that they thought were important.
Let me double check with purchasing as to whether or not that needs to be placed in the RFP. I can get that answer tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Pat. Any other comments on the RFP itself?
I got this is my understanding. When the RFP goes out, you can have the weights that are already in the RFP. That's when that goes out. But then I thought we were going to create a subcommittee that would be making the selections, like 3 of us, and I'm perfectly. And then those 3 can get together and decide how they want to break that out. I don't care how they break it out, but that doesn't have to be published. So let's go with the RFP, the basic breakdowns that are in the RFP now, instead of trying to wait another week to get those breakdowns. And then whoever's on that subcommittee, they can get together and say, look, in this area, I'd like to ask this, this, and this, or have this as a deeper breakdown. And whoever they come up with is going to be fine with me, because they've done the work and they understand how to do these matrix that Warren's talking about.
I like that idea, Mark. We just have to keep in mind that we can't, well, that part has to be finished before we receive or open any of the, which I like that idea though.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. It's like, let's get the RFP on the street, and then you guys got 20 days to come up with your lower matrix. So when you get the actual incoming offers, then you can break it down. But I don't want to wait 2 weeks while we break this down to even put the RFP on the street.
So do we want to now identify who should be on that subcommittee, or is that a future task?
No, I actually had it down. If did everyone get the timeline that I put out?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now.
I thought that was going to be one thing we would do. We would say, okay, Larry's RFP is perfect, good. The modifications that we were going to do, formatting and all that kind of stuff, send it to purchasing, get it on the street. We'd pick a subcommittee, and anybody that wants to raise their hand is fine. I think, Warren, your experience and anybody else has experience. I don't have experience in that selection process. So I think 3, I think 3 would be fine. I don't think you want to have 5.
3 is usually from my experience, which is limited on the grading side. I've always been with 3 people.
So those that are interested, throw your hands up, and I'm fine with that.
Okay, and before we're done with it, Pat, maybe some more clarification on the cost proposal being reviewed separately, that you shouldn't cross those 2 teams. Is that your understanding?
Well, part of the evaluation, and hold on, is the total cost. So the graders or evaluators, whatever you want to call them, are to be considering the total proposed cost. It's 20% of the proposal evaluation.
Yeah, I get that part, but the quantitative versus the qualitative, generally the person reviewing the cost proposal, it's kind of like separation of powers or internal controls. You're not looking at both sides of the ledger at the same time. You're evaluating the qualitative response, i.e., are they suitable? Do they know what they're doing? But the whole cost thing, I thought, generally, at least at the state level, is done by a separate team than the person who's reviewing the actual evaluation.
I've never seen that here. Maybe that's a state thing. I've done 2 attorney things. It was years ago, and it was 3 separate graders grading the entire package. But we were all attorneys, so we kind of understood how attorneys bill.
Okay, that may only come into account for multi-year proposals to cost things. So
I can get an answer tomorrow morning. So.
Okay, thanks.
I hate having to say that, by the way. I wish I had the answers, but I have to hear the questions before I get the answers.
Thank you, Pat. Warren, I would appreciate your serving on the evaluation team. Are there others who are interested, willing to be on that team and review the proposals?
I know I am. I've had some experience doing that for the county in the past.
Great, thank you, Tom. Is there one more who'd be interested in being a part of the evaluation team?
Wasn't that 3? Mark.
Lauren and Tom?
Mark, I thought.
Oh, no, I wasn't.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
You
I
know,
thought you
if it gets down to it and there isn't.
Mark took
it's
3
just-
steps back.
Yeah,
Good for you, Mark. My bad.
One step forward. No, like my career, I've always had people, I'm at the back end of that where the final candidates were given to me before I made the selection. So all that process, I've never had experience doing that part of it. I was always just given my, the top 3 or the top 5 to select from. Joan?
Leif, did you want to say something? Right.
If you have a team for
I will-
evaluation, I'll join the team if you like.
That'd be great. Thank you, Leif.
Joan, you had something?
I was going to say the same thing.
Either one of you have a preference as to whether you serve?
I think I'll choose to the MMD rather.
Okay.
Okay, so then we've made, it's gonna be Warren, Tom, and Leaf, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Um,
And the 3 of you can separately discuss amongst yourselves how you would like the evaluation tool to work. Anything else on the RFP at this point in time?
Larry, I think I missed, could you just go over, I want to make sure I'm looking at the right version of the one that I have. Do you mind just going over the breakdown for the evaluation on that RFP that you mentioned, the percentage wise? I want to make sure I'm looking at the right numbers.
Larry, do you have it in
Criteria?
front of you? Because I have it in front of me.
Yeah, the criteria, yeah, I do have it here. The proposer's comprehension of the required work, the scope of services is 20%.
Okay,
Professional qualifications is 20%. Completeness of the proposal is 10%. Proposed cost is 20%. Experience in representing and advising local governmental bodies is 10%. Proposer's experience in providing redistricting services is 10%. And proposer's experience in providing election and voting law compliance services is 10%.
so I'm looking at the right one then.
Okay.
Mine actually doesn't have the change for municipal. Did you make that?
I had not made that change yet. but
Okay,
that-
okay.
Talked of. You are correct, Pat.
All right. I was worried that the shared file wasn't working. Okay.
Larry,
Yes.
could you actually circulate that again to everybody just to make sure that everybody has the definitive final word?
I will make the wording changes that we've talked about, and I will send a revised version out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, then that I think does us for the moment on the RFP.
Mhm.
Javon, I noted that you had sent us a revision in the proposed members of the MMD.
Mhm.
I didn't know if you had anything else that you wanted to say on that. And Pat had made the full file available, and I will circulate the link to that out to everyone also tomorrow. My own inclination is that for us not to second guess the proposed 3, but I think that we can review the full file and review the 3 that have been proposed. And if no one has any objection, then we will simply go with the 3 that have been proposed. Does anyone mind proceeding in that fashion. And I think we can do that by email and not wait till next week
Mhm.
so that the MMD can get started as well.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, good.
Um,
Thank
Larry, do you want a motion to that effect, that we actually make the appointment of the 3 recommended people and then include some language in the motion about allowing, I don't know, people to object? What's the word I'm looking for here? In case somebody has a problem with it, then it would not become effective. But I like the idea of accepting the recommendations and moving forward, because we really do need to get the MMD subcommittee going. But I'm not quite sure. You outlined something where we would approve these appointments, but allow time for people if they had some objection. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
you. And what I would suggest is that we actually vote on the motion by email after everyone has had an opportunity to review the file.
Okay.
So I
All
will
right, so
make the
we're not
file
making a
available.
motion. We're not making motion right now. We'll wait.
We're
to
not
do
going to
that.
vote on the motion right now, but I think that a motion
Okay.
put on the table now for an email vote would be entirely appropriate.
I would make that
Patricia,
motion.
I have a hand.
Patricia,
Yes, sorry. So we're going to, I didn't know whether you wanted to basically just have like a spreadsheet and we all just say yes, or what our issues are, or is it just you send an email and we're all just reply back yes, and or here's my issue. So just trying to clarify, and what's the date we want to do this by?
if I'm sending all of the information out tomorrow, I would appreciate if we can all have the responses back by Thursday. And then the 3 can be notified. Yeah, Leif.
Could I suggest either an amendment or at least some modified wording to the motion where you preface it by saying barring any objection or suggestions to the contrary, so moved that it be approved, et cetera, to make clear that we still have the right of refusal.
Mhm.
Right, and along those lines, I just think we also need to be careful with some of the language, i.e., you know, I read the law, and again, it's, you got to read this stuff a couple times. I would posit that no one is second guessing the appointments, but I think the law says this commission sort of, so I just need, especially since we're being recorded and it's public and separation of powers and all that other stuff, we need to be careful about that.
These are our appointments.
Okay,
That's correct.
And
Yeah, Tom.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that I would withdraw my motion if indeed we're going to do this later on by a motion by email.
Okay.
Is that the intent? And then we'll handle the whole making of the motion by email later on when the reviews are done.
And I will include the motion within my email out to all of you,
Okay.
if that works for everybody. And then you can just reply.
Mhm.
Right. Including that caveat.
I'm sorry.
Oh, the motion you draft would include the caveat I suggested.
So I'm not tracking now, Leif.
Oh, I'm sorry. To have some wording to the effect that barring any objection, the recommended appointments are approved.
Well, but you will have the basis for making an objection or not making an objection before you when you vote.
However you do it, that's fine, Larry.
Okay. All right, then that takes care of that. And then the once the motion will be to appoint the 3, and everyone will have the opportunity to vote on that motion of the appointments themselves. The next item was really two different items, two different comments that have been made. One is that Warren has indicated that we need to find a way of dealing with administrative support. And Patricia also had indicated that we need to have a means of recording in writing what actions we take and the actions of this commission. My own thoughts on administrative support is that I think that our needs are very limited at this point in time. I'm not sure exactly what you were thinking of, Warren, in terms of providing administrative support. I don't think that we need to go to the extent of actually hiring staff right now. I think that that would be more than we require at this point. But I think that some clerical services on an as-needed basis could be helpful. I'm not sure what else you were thinking of, Warren.
The only other thing I would say is that when it comes time for the, excuse that noise, I got something beeping in the background. For the public hearings.
Absolutely, we will need technical assistance for those, no question.
I'll speak up. We talked about this last week, and my opinion is, you know, I worked for the federal government for 40 years, and I'm sure they have somebody that works for the legislature down there that has a couple hours a week they can do, or they can even slide to us. It just, I know that manpower is there. We would just have to ask for them to say, look, can you have somebody sit in on this for an hour a week? And then they may need another hour for the rest of that week to kind of tie some things up. And then again, as Warren says, as we get closer to the public meetings, then we may need another one for an hour or so. But like you said, the needs for an administrative assistant is not that great right now. And I would hate to spend money just because we have money. That's not my, I know we have $400,000, but you want to know something? I'm one where, look, let's use the resources that we have. And there's got to be somebody down at the legislature, a secretary that, or a special assistant that could give us 2 hours a week. That would be my opinion.
Pat, I don't know if you wanted to comment. I know that the last time this came up, you had been reluctant to go down that road, wanting to make sure that the commission retained its independence.
That's accurate. What I was thinking, I've been making some phone calls today. We could probably get an intern from either the law school or one of our local colleges. They could be paid for the time they put in. They may be able to, we could set something up or reach out to see if they could get college credit for it, or I don't know if you get law school credit for that, but I would recommend a college student. Law students are sometimes, their schedules are a bit crazy, but also a very good option. So I'm happy to reach out to our contacts at the local schools if that's an avenue you'd like to pursue. I'm guessing it's probably no more than 4 hours a week. I mean, once you get the council and the mapper, they would just be in these meetings, possibly taking minutes if the council's not. If it's a tech savvy individual, they could be running the public hearings. I will just tell you, it is not hard to do Zoom from the administrative end. I've been doing it. I learned about Zoom when the pandemic hit. I had to not only learn it myself, but teach 39 individuals how to do it. So it wasn't a class in law school, but I understand it. It's really pretty easy. So we can pursue the intern route if you want. And then again, they wouldn't be an employee of the legislature or any executive branch. Payment is a possibility. We can cause the payment to be done at whatever hourly wage you desire. But if you want, I can start reaching out and try and get better details on that.
Patricia, did you have something?
Yeah, I think we're in the beginning of this process, and I would like to see that we have notes that record our actions that need to get done and who's doing them, the decisions made and so forth, and the open items we're carrying. But I also recognize that just even from some of what we did with the RFP, we're not really using the collaboration tools well. We don't have a shared folder we could all go to. Each of us has individual items that are then shared. So you have to go search for, what's been shared with me sort of stuff. So I was thinking, in addition to Zoom, and this is where I was going to reach out to Mr. LaFontaine, or LaFountain, however you say his name, because I think collaboration tools are going to make a huge difference. And it would be really helpful to have somebody guide us on that and make sure we're all have our documents in a shared folder. We could just go to the folder and see them and make sure that's always the current version and it's a shared document and so forth. So I'm all in favor of having meeting notes, and I will do some today just because that's the way I am. I've run very large projects, and but I think it's more than just Zoom. But I do like, Pat, I like your suggestion about an intern.
I mean, if you're a young college student studying political science, they would very much like to be a part of something like this.
And tell you the truth, I was thinking of, somebody, that's already employed, but I tell you, once you brought that up, I'm like, oh my gosh, why aren't we picking a political science intern? Helps his resume out, and for paying him $20 an hour, that's fine with me too.
Good thought. Yeah, Tom?
I think one concern there would be that our timeline extends through the end of the summer. So you're not just talking about somebody who'd be in the fall semester, but the whole of the spring semester, and then presumably even summer. So you'd have to be careful that the person was going to be available for an extended period, or you might want to think of this as somebody who changes every semester to a new person.
I think it could work either way.
We've had interns. We have a generalized intern program, and we have a variety of them within the county, where some had stayed on because a project wasn't done, so I'll see what options we have, but that's a good point. I'll figure it out with HR, and just don't get a senior, I guess, or get a senior because they're. But yeah, I'll talk to HR.
Would this include the public hearings as well? Someone to be the technical to take care of those?
Probably, but again, when it comes to making sure you're able to function, we will be able to help.
Okay.
Yes, Tom.
Before we finish up this section, I think Patricia made a very good point about having some kind of written record of decisions that we make. So I'll ask her, Patricia, do you think we're looking more at having someone who would also serve as secretary to the commission, which could be one of our members, or are we talking about the administrative support that we get to set up every meeting and to make sure that the meeting is recorded, have that also result in some synopsis of decisions that have been made?
I think it should be an administrative support to do that. So usually on running an initiative, a project, there's a project administrator, and that person could be, somebody who really doesn't require high-level skills, but one of them is to actually record decisions, actions, open items, so that we could be working off of a clear list that, recaps what we've done and where we're going and what we have to work on. Does that answer your question, Tom? I'm not sure I did that well.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to flesh this out and see where we're going with it, because we've returned to it a couple of times and I don't want to see it get lost.
Yeah, and in fact, sorry. I was just gonna add one thing in that
Go ahead.
I probably go overboard because I've done this stuff so much. But yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about even today's notes. I'm gonna put them into a spreadsheet with a date as to what the items are and what the status is. Just because that's how I've always learned, so that you can see what's a closed item, what's an open item, and you know, and when was the decision made and that kind of thing looking back. So it's a cumulative and it's just entries into a spreadsheet. That's what I'm gonna do for today. I don't care what the person who comes on does, as long as it gets, you know, we record it in some way. I want the transparency that we're trying to live up to in terms of what the legislation was written about too.
Well, quite honest, Patricia, when we hire this intern or whoever's going to do this, I'd like you to sit with them for 10 minutes and explain.
More than, if you want, I can
Yeah.
be the assigned person to deal with that person.
Yeah, just explain to them, because you've got that
Yeah.
expertise. Let's give it to that person. So
Not a problem. I
you know,
can be that person.
okay, thank you.
One other item that I had on my list of topics for today was, and we've talked about it a little bit, is the timeline. And I don't have an answer at the moment. It has fewer items on it than I thought it would have, but I appreciate very much the thought that went into it, Mark. And as I say that, I'm not sure what the other items are either. So I don't know if anyone had any specific comments. The one comment that I do recall being made was with regard to our desire not to create the timeline for the MMD committee, but that their timeline should be, or their events, their landmark items should certainly be reflected on our timeline, so that we collectively keep track of them. I don't know if anyone else had any thoughts or comments on what they think should be on the timeline. I know that I want to think about that some more myself, and I may have some others to propose. And Tom's two comments were the only one that really was significant was the public hearings really are public. The public meetings are public hearings, and I agree that we should be planning a public hearing. My thought would be before the end of the year, before we get into mapping, but to hear the residents of Albany County on what they see as being important as we move into that. Sita?
Yeah, I just had a question about the public hearings in terms of the timeline for that. So in terms of setting this up, I don't really know the nitty-gritty of this, but how early do you have to like publicize that each hearing? Does it have to be in some sort of format that people can read online before they actually come? Is there like a time? Some people have told me at least it has to be up for at least 24 hours in minimum, or maybe it might be more. I don't really trying to find if what the requirements are for doing that. So maybe we could include that in that timeline as well. So we kind of have a deadline that we can stick to.
I'm sure as we get closer to having a public meeting, we'll look up those requirements and make sure that we abide by those timelines. It's just building a timeline for the next 9 months. I couldn't say that, okay, like these dates I put in here, those are suggested dates. We can move them right or left. There's nothing written in stone here. And the reason I I know we have to have a minimum of 4. So I put 4 on here. The reason I didn't have one, I know somebody mentioned we have one before the end of the year, but there's no sense in having a public hearing about redistricting when we haven't even selected a mapper, or they haven't even selected, we don't even know what, like if somebody asks us a question, we're going to say, I don't know, or I don't know. Then it just kind of shoots down our expertise. The reason I had the first one set in April, well, I forget April 18th, is because hopefully, you see down at the bottom, starting in the next couple of weeks, I was hopefully we could get the legislative districts to us so we could start getting familiar with them and all that kind of stuff. And then once we get the data back from the mapper, that's when we start doing our analyzing. We start seeing, are there any problems? Then we have the first meeting, not towards the end, but halfway through. So anyone can say, look, I have a problem with this area. Oh, I know that area. Okay, we can look at that. But if we have one before we even start analyzing the data, then we're just going to say, I don't know. Yeah, okay, we'll look at that. Okay, we'll look at that, and rather have answers for them. So that's why the first one was pushed back till April. And then as we push through our analyzing, the timeline where we're analyzing it, we're going to get closer. I was thinking that first one could be a county-wide one. And then the last 3, we could zoom in on areas that there may be changes, and then boom, we could have some answers, or say, oh, wait a minute, that guy's got a great point. And then we go back and we have a week to kind of maybe adjust the line or whatever. That was the rationale for the 3 public meetings. And I picked Monday nights because that's when we get together. We can adjust those dates. That was just thrown out there. That was the rationale for the public meetings.
Okay. I mean, I agree with you. It doesn't make sense having something super early. I mean, that timeline looks fine to me from right now where I'm sitting at, but I'm just wondering if anybody had by your experience, like what the whole setting up of these hearings, like how much work actually goes into it, like before actually having a hearing per se in front of people.
Leif,
Either
Leif, you wanted to say that?
I have a question as to process and outcome. I noticed the last thing on the timeline is prepare a final report with the MMD for submission to legislature. Is that the expectation that we are to work out some kind of common or joint report with the MMD, or is there going to be some or 2 separate reports, or are we trying to reach consensus?
No, I believe it's the law says that we're going to submit 1 report from both teams.
That was my recollection as well.
Okay.
Yeah, my
That's-
recollection is that too. I think from the way the MMD is structured, they're kind of like a laser focus on the MMD issue.
Mhm.
And we're of course concerned with it, but we're looking at the larger piece, and then their MMD kind of fits in with what our larger piece. And
Yeah.
that's why we have to have maximum coordination.
Yeah, hopefully
So
they
they'll
They
be
make
doing-
recommendations to us.
Okay, they'll be doing a review and oversight
Yes.
kind of critique function then.
I would
Gi-
say
giving
I think
not
it's
necessarily
more than that.
oversight and critique. Their job is to focus on racial equity issues specifically.
Right.
Whereas our job is to do the other 7 or whatever points of, contiguous and equal distance and all that stuff. But their
Okay.
primary concern is minority representation.
So it's our responsibility to take those considerations into account.
Absolutely.
Okay, just
Absolutely.
trying to understand the process.
Tricia?
So I just wanted to, in terms of back to administrative, but also the public hearings. One of the things I did this week, but I didn't publish out, was the website. And we need to think about whether we accept testimony via the website. So I am assuming administratively that it is county staff that support us in the build out of the website. And so administratively, that would fall under the county. But I do think that there should be a fair amount of lead time in advance of when we actually hold the public hearing to have people submit testimony in writing if they want, or sign up for, speaking publicly. So there is a bit there.
And that's an excellent idea, where Larry thought more should be on this timeline. We should have a timeline on this, expecting when our website should be up and published.
Yeah,
We have that on here somewhere. So I'll try and, does anyone have a date you think, like January 15th?
I think we should actually, my recommendation is that we immediately change what is the page that if you go to the county legislature, there's a sub page there for this, and it asks the public to actually apply right now.
Mhm.
I say we change that immediately. And then I didn't finish it last night, but basically I have some sub pages from there. Who are we? Which explains the MMD plus us and our bios or whatever, and some other things. So it could be incrementally built out as it needs to be. But I will have something probably, it's a little crazy this week, by later part of the week with that I'll put out as a suggestion for the website. But I think that it would be basically not a set date, it's a ongoing with updates.
Okay, but we're gonna have to work with the county on that, correct?
Correct.
So we need to, okay, like, do we want to shoot for middle December? That we have that incrementally started? Because if we say we're just going to coordinate with the county, then it may, miss a week. So.
Right. So I don't know, Pat, if we come to changes that we want right away, so it no longer says apply, and we get a draft of what we want it to say instead, how do we go about, do we go directly to somebody, or do we need to go through you in order to make those changes?
You can go through me, but I just want to note something. You may want to keep the application open, because if any of you win the lottery and decide to bail, you don't have a mechanism to get anyone new. But also, we haven't got any, there's been down times where we're not getting applications. So just food for thought, we can pull it in a matter of hours. But you can go through me, or if it starts to get really technical, I can just get on the phone with the person who actually does the website.
Yeah, you can, if you want, you can just give us that contact and work. I don't necessarily want to add more burden to you. If we have agreement amongst the commissioners, can work directly with them in terms of implementation.
Yeah, like the actual website you're talking about, I just sent over to IT. We're going to need essentially a fillable form that has question. If you go on it right now and try and say no to the first two answers, you're done. It won't give you the rest of the questions because you've already disqualified yourself. And then you're presented with the next 5 questions, and IT put that together for us in a matter of days. So they're pretty handy down there. It's Jen Cross. Let me call her tomorrow morning we've advised IT and our DGS people that the commission exists and its work is extremely important. So any and all help should be freely given. So, John set you all up with emails as soon as you contacted them. So we're working pretty good. Let me contact her in the morning and I'll get you the contact information.
Thank you.
And it's just one thing for Sita. She was worried about the public hearings. I think we really have to wait until like March to see what the environment is like, and whether they're going to be Zoom.
No, I'm in the redistrict.
Or whether they're going to be in person.
Mhm.
It's like I ran when I was on New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia airspace redesign, and we had meetings, and like we've said before, some of them can get especially when we talk about airplane noise, they can get very vocal. Well, those decisions, you really can't make them yet because you don't know what the environment's going to be like in March. But as we get closer, I think we'll identify what the requirements are,
Mhm.
and then we'll identify whether they're going to be in person or Zoom, and then those will fill out.
Okay, makes sense. I just also had like Pat said, maybe it'd be a good idea to keep the application still on there because at least till the whole MMD subcommittee is actually even formed, and then they actually get a few meetings in, and, you know, just in case we have any issues like people dropping out or something.
It can't hurt to have it still be available as one of the pages on the website.
Tom?
I don't want to put Patricia on the spot, but I will ask her because it's relevant, I think, here to this whole public hearing issue. Patricia, you're the only one who's really been through this redistricting sort of thing and has kept an eye on what the state is doing, for example. And I keep coming back to the notion that there may be people who want to make generalized statements about what they want to see in redistricting, that it would make sense to have an early public hearing before you actually do have maps. But I recognize that the real heavy duty comments are likely to come later on when you've actually issued some draft maps and people start saying, well, no, I don't think this neighborhood should be in that district and so on. And they'll be more specific. But I would think there would be people who would have general comments and would want to say something about even the methodology that we're going to apply here at an early stage. And I could see a public hearing happening in February or March, whether it's virtual or it's in person. Personally, I think the virtual one has a lot of advantages in terms of enabling more people to attend, especially if you're talking about that time of the year when the weather can be tricky. But Pat, I would like to have your comments on that.
So I'm not the only one engaged amongst us in the state stuff. Warren's got dragged in, and well, he jumped in as well on this. They did have listening sessions early on before they released the maps. When I was putting together the website, I thought that we should have a contact page in which people at any point can submit commentary in. I do think people will have comments on at large, as you say. I think that's totally true. They might, partway into this say, hey, I can't see your meeting notes, or, I want you to have more transparency, whatever they're going to say, or I want you to strongly consider X, Y, and Z. So I think we can decide more about when to hold the first public meeting. But I do think that it was going to be my suggestion that we have a way for people to contact us from the get-go. And I'm assuming that I think we said at one point that we have an email address for us as commissioners. That's a single external email address. So, and those need to, and that becomes public record. So we need to ensure that that becomes, and that's the administrative piece.
Yeah, to that point, I agree with both of you. And I think, Tom, we can get the disclosure and people's comments via the website, which the legislation goes at length to sort of disclose as our landing page and where everything happens. So if your quest is just for people being able to comment, they don't obviously have to do that at a hearing, especially we have a good website that's robust and they know about it, they can put their comments right there through the website.
I agree with everyone. And I do think that the February date to see what the public wants to say by that time, and we will know the interest by those people who are for that time. And I like the Zoom, of course, because more people from different places can comment and so I think that's the February start is just for one to see what happens. It's called, and I like the email and the website, but I think I'm going back to the support. And I know Pat will be doing this, finding out about the students. How many are we getting? Because from what I've heard discussed here today, we'll have at least 3. One to take notes, one to do the public hearings, and one to set up technical support, and one that does this. So how many students are we getting? Approximately.
No,
I thought it was just one, to be honest.
yeah, Joan, I think the technical support is gonna come from the county. That's for the website and stuff like that. And then I thought we'd have one that would take the notes and then, as Patricia said, make sure they document what's been accomplished.
Wouldn't it be
needs to
another
open.
tech for public hearings? Another person?
My own thought is we probably need another person. I'm not sure it's another
Absolutely.
intern.
We need, yeah.
We will need help with the hearings. In
Different
all
from that.
likelihood, they're in person or virtual as to the technical aspects of in person. You've got the audio and make sure the recordings are taking place and all of those things. And if it's on Zoom, then you've got similar issues with regard to Zoom. But I think and there needs to be, in either case, somebody that's dedicated to doing that and just making sure it happens.
So why don't we pick two then, and then just have them work as a team in a certain way? One may be on vacation, et cetera. So it can't hurt to have two.
We may also need somebody really to help us with when we start getting testimony in.
Yeah.
To organize that and pull out key points and that kind of a thing. Help us with a little bit of the analysis of what we've received. I don't want to go too far, but I do like the fact of what's being suggested, that we have two and they be a team.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really from when you see who you're going to hire, it depends on the skill set of that person, whether they can fill all the spots or some of them. And so sometimes you hire somebody for not just the skills, you're hiring for other things, but so you mix and match the skills.
What's the role of the legal support? Would the lawyers, the legal team be helping with the hearings, for example? You need somebody who knows the law and all the various procedures for conducting a hearing.
No question that there will be that kind of support, but really now we're talking about much more on the administrative side than the substance side.
Okay, thank you.
See, and I like the idea, Warren, when you brought up two. That does make sense. They got a team, they can bounce ideas off each other, better support for us. They're college students probably, and they're not going to be that expensive. But again, I don't want to sit today and try and make decisions that something may happen 3 months from now when circumstances may change and may most likely will change. So, it's like, let's try not to digest the whole process today. Just let it set for a while. Let's get the administrative side going, maybe get some interns, and as we get closer, those decisions will be made.
Okay. We have hit the witching hour. One other thing that I just wanted to mention as we leave, assuming that the commission approves the 3 appointments to the MMD, I will also ask that Caitlin invite those 3 members to meet with us at our meeting next week. And we can talk with them as the 4 of you talked with those of us who were the newbies that you brought on board, about what the commission is and what the role of the MMD is, and the fact that they need to now fill out the MMD subcommittee. So if
I'm sorry, Caitlin's not here, but I can make sure that happens.
sure, and I will let her know at that point as well. So thank you, Pat. And if there's nothing else, then I will stop the recording.
Sounds good.